absolutely delighted to have you all here. I'll introduce our three speakers. So our first speaker is Karina Gardner, who is the CEO of the IDP Foundation. The IDP Foundation is a family foundation focusing primarily on increasing access to quality education in underserved communities in Ghana. Before Karina joined the foundation in 2020, she had a career focused on international development, specializing in global health, technology, and gender. She has experience working in multiple countries across the African continent, as well as in India and the Caucasus. And then I'm also delighted to welcome Stephen Caleb Apuni. Stephen is the country director for the IDP Foundation, and he leads a team focusing on influence strategy and effective partnerships for the non-state education sector at both the national and global level. He's an economist by training with over 10 years experience in the development sector, and as well as education, he's worked on gender equality, health, and economic rights. And our final speaker today is Raphael Akomia. Raphael is the program manager for the IDP Foundation. He's managed and overseen the implementation of all of the IDP Foundation's programs and its partners for the past 5 years. Prior to his current role, Raphael managed the implementation of the IDP Rising Schools program at Sanapi Aba, who you will hear about a little bit later in the webinar. And they're one of the largest financial institutions in Ghana, and he did that for 7 years. So I'm really delighted to have such a top-notch quality, top-notch panel of speakers. And I would like to throw across to Karina to introduce the webinar and kick us off.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thanks to everybody who has chosen to join us today. We thought we would start with just a little bit of context setting about the situation in Ghana. As you can see here, a third of all schools in Ghana are non-state. The majority of those non-state schools are independently run low-fee private schools serving low-income communities. The number of low-fee private schools in Ghana is rapidly expanding, and that is in response to an ever-growing demand for education. Today, over 2 million students are educated in non-state schools in Ghana. USAID has, as you can see here, adopted a specific definition for low-cost private schools. This is the term that USAID uses. It's the same definition IDP Foundation created for what we call low-fee private schools. I just wanted to bring attention to the fact that we'll be using the term low-fee private schools because that's what we're used to within the IDP Foundation, but I can assure you, as you see based on the definition, we are using the exact same definition as USAID. I thought I would paint a little bit of a picture, as well as show and share a picture on this slide of the typical low-fee private school and how it's established. In Ghana, we find that the majority of these schools start up organically. They're generally responding to a need in the community. That need could be a lack of enough private schools in the area, or overcrowding of the public schools that are there, or an obstruction that makes it unsafe for somebody to travel to that school, such as a really heavily trafficked road in the way. When someone decides to start a low-fee private school, they generally finance it through personal savings, maybe some support from close family members or friends, and every now and then a microfinance loan might be available to them. The infrastructure of the schools is very basic. Sometimes in buildings that are not even finished, often without doors or windows or finished floors even. They will have limited furniture and limited teaching and learning materials. The schools tend to grow with the pupils. They often start with a younger cohort, and as that initial cohort gets older, they start finding more teachers and creating more grade levels in order to serve the need of that original cohort, and then more children added, and it grows on. So the more mature the school, the more likely it is to be serving more grades. Low-fee private schools have become a cornerstone of the overall education system in Ghana. They provide education to underserved communities, yet they rarely get the financial and regulatory support that they need to thrive. Despite these challenges, the sector's rapid growth means that it has been receiving increased attention. We're all aware of the recent UNESCO GEM report focused on non-state, and of course of the current USAID solicitation that's focused specifically on low-fee private schools. IDP Foundation has been both a funder and champion of low-fee private schools for a long time now, and we are thrilled to see them recognized as a vital part of the overall education system. So we'll move on now to talk a little bit about our model. The IDP Foundation started the Rising Schools program 13 years ago, focused again on independent low-fee private schools. Our model is to find schools who have been established and need help. We don't build schools from scratch. We tend to support through three major pillars of access, quality, and advocacy. Access means both extending access to education as well as access to finance. And we expand the access to finance specifically through a partnership with our local partner, Sinapiaba. The model we've used is to provide concessionary debt to our local financial partner, and that allows them to on-lend to low-fee private school proprietors who would otherwise be considered too risky. That might be because they don't have the proper collateral or cash flow, or maybe the credit history they need to qualify for loans. It also means that we're able to offer the loans at below market interest rates. Another way that we de-risk these loans is by providing targeted training that's designed specifically to address the unique needs of low-fee private schools to operate as financially sustainable businesses. This can include things like creating financial documents such as cash flow statements and balance sheets. It can be around school management issues like engaging parent-teacher associations or how to manage your teachers better. And it also is around navigating registration requirements with government or how to best work with district officials. Within the quality pillar, we're focused both on infrastructure as well as improving learning outcomes. The technique for effective teaching curriculum is something we've created to help move away from rote learning to a more pupil-centered and activity-based teaching techniques. We're going to talk about all of these things a little bit later in this presentation. But the main conclusion is that after 13 years, IDP Rising program has demonstrated that with the right training, that low-fee private schools can successfully manage and efficiently use a business loan to improve the quality of their schools. You can see on the stats here that we have pretty good representation, both in terms of students, actually more female students than male students across the portfolio, and a good number of private school proprietors are women. Also, we are really focusing on the lowest fee charging schools. You'll see that an annual fee at the lowest charging goes all the way down to 15 CDs per year, and that the vast majority of the schools are either rated C or D by Ghana Education Services or even unrated. As you can see on the map, the majority of our work has been in southern regions, but we do have some experience working in northern regions. And I'm going to pass to my colleague Ralph now to speak a little bit about that.
Thank you, Karina. I'm happy to share with our audience some of the experiences from our work in the northern regions. Before I proceed, apologies to listeners, there might be some background noise as there's a construction going on just across the street. All right, so in terms of our work in the northern regions, Upper East was the gateway for the program entering the northern parts of Ghana. And this was way back in 2010. I remember when we first got to the region, we had to scout through almost the entire region to look for low-fee private schools. At the end of the day, we got only 15 low-fee private schools that met our criteria. Of course, in line with the recent USAID assessment on low-fee private schools in the northern regions, we also believe that the number of the schools have increased in recent years. But in spite of growth in the numbers, we still believe there are still some lingering challenges that are worth noting to any organization that intends to serve low-fee private schools in the north. I'll touch on 3 of these challenges. The first being how sparsely spread the schools are across the region. For interventions like the IDP Rise School program that requires a lot of hand-holding and monitoring and training, it was simply not operationally sustainable. We're traveling long distances, to serve 1 or 2 schools. Based on our model, which is built on the principle of sustainability, where we expect our partners to keep serving these schools, even beyond the IDP Foundation support. Such high operational costs didn't help at all. Anyway, we are still trying to figure out how to work around this challenge. The second challenge that I will touch on It's to do with proprietors' appetite for debt. This is not because they don't have a need for loans or they don't want the loans. It's simply because of their fear of not being able to repay the loans when they take it due to uncertainties around fee payment. And obviously, they also charge very low fee. It's a struggle for them to also consistently collect fees from parents. This fear will remain until proprietors find a way to ensure that there is a consistent payment of fees by parents in the region. The third challenge, which is to do with schools not being able to meet loan requirements. Schools that are able to even apply for loans from the program don't even have the proper documentation to back their application. We managed to work around some of these issues when our FI partner was a credit-only microfinance. But at the moment, they are regulated savings and loans, and it is becoming almost impossible to skip some of these regulations, these requirements due to regulations of the land. We therefore entreat organizations seeking to support low-fee private schools in the North to try and think around some of these challenges, find solutions before going to support these schools. We believe it is due to these challenges and many more that USAID has chosen to focus their efforts on this zone of influence, as you can see on the slide. We are happy to share more context in the region when need be. Thank you all, and I'll now pass it on to Stephen, who will share with you some of the learnings that we've gathered from some of our researches.
Thank you very much, Ralph. And I should say that evidence is very important when working in the area of low-fee private schools. And so over the past 4 years, IDP has been funding research within the education landscape to help understand better the role of low-fee private schools in the landscape. We understand that we are one of the few funders that is working specifically on low-fee private schools. And we are constantly aware that there is limited data and information on low-fee private schools within the space, which largely, explains why low-fee private schools are underrepresented. They lack the visibility when it comes to the education landscape. As a result of this, the foundation has been very intentional in commissioning critical research to help address the evidence gap within the space. And therefore, we are doing this intentionally also with local research partners to ensure that that interest is built and sustained over the period. I'll touch on a few. In 2008, IDP commissioned a research working with Data Plus, a local data collection partner, where we sought to investigate some of the challenges that pupils and teachers in government and private low-fee private schools, low-fee private schools in the central region faced. We also funded 2 studies during the COVID pandemic, trying to understand the impact of the pandemic on the low-fee private schools within the IDP Rising Schools program. Sorry for that. This research looked at 2 phases within the pandemic. The first one, we sought to look at the pre-opening of schools. And this one focused on the state of schools just before they were reopened during the pandemic. And it was followed by the next phase that took a look at the schools after they had been reopened for some time. Further to this, our financial institution partner, Sinapiaba, also did a very vital needs assessment and vulnerability assessment of the schools within the IDP Rising Schools program, which revealed a lot of evidence and critical information that helped us to work together with our partner to respond and support the schools during the pandemic. So this happened during the critical stage of the pandemic around December 2020 and January 2021, and it largely informed the foundation and the partners' response in supporting schools. We then followed up in March 2021, having AFC, our research partner who did this impact assessment, to also go back and look at another sample of the schools to focus on the post-reopening phase of the research. And today we are very happy that key insights pulled from all these research have been put together into a new policy brief that provides credible recommendations that we hope can inform government action when dealing or working within the low-fee private schools space. Sorry. Today as well, we are happy to share original research we've not published before that includes key insights that we have gathered from all the researches that we've done over the period of 4 years. And we are hoping that this evidence that we'll be sharing with this audience will serve as critical input to feed in the work that they plan to do within the area of the low-fee private school sector, would incite the necessary interest in the sector, bridge the evidence gap, and as well incite and activate a lot of resources and support for which the sector really needs at this moment. I would like to zoom in into one of the research areas that we conducted in 2018 and 2019. IDP Foundation commissioned this research focusing on the challenges that pupils and teachers face in government and private schools in the central region. Actually, we wanted to actually understand the proximate determinants of learning in these two school sectors. The data from the investigation was gathered by Data Plus, our research partner then, and what we found out was that statistically, there was a strong association between attending a low-fee private school, attending an urban school, and higher NEA test scores. NEA is the National Education Assessment that are done in Ghana. But mainly what we want to share from this part of research is that the main takeaway being the shared challenges that these schools face, these two school sectors face. Basically, we found out that both public and low-fee private schools were struggling due to limited resources in improving learning outcomes. This really signals the need for us to work together to find innovative ways of addressing these learning gaps and to be able to apply the innovations that we find to the entire education ecosystem. Another interesting finding that we found was that both public schools and low-fee private schools within the districts of the central region faced significant infrastructure deficits, even though the study showed that public schools had preferably better infrastructure compared to low-fee private schools. Both of them were really suffering when it comes to infrastructure, which we all know also impacts learning. So on this particular finding, I think it's very significant for all of us to be aware of the need for us to find innovative ways to direct investments into infrastructure, both in public schools and in the low-fee private schools as well. Well, at this point, it is important also to acknowledge that there are significant differences between public schools and private schools. However, it is even more important to acknowledge that both schools, public and low-fee private schools, face deficits in meeting their own learning processes and learning outcomes. And there is a need for all of us to work together to address this. For us to do this, there is a need for us to put the public and private debate aside and work together. We can do this only if we intentionally ensure that support is reaching the entire education system and that all learners, no matter where they are found, are being taken care of, and that the necessary skills and competencies that these learners need are being provided for them. It's these key skills, these 21st century skills that they need to thrive in this dynamic world. So I think that our work is all cut out for us. And at this stage, I'll pass on again the space to Ralph, who will share some few insights with us on some of the findings we found in respect to the pandemic period. Ralph.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for those insights. I'm happy to highlight a few more insights that speaks to the resilience of these low-fee private schools amid the COVID challenges. So as Stephen mentioned, during the school closures caused by COVID, IDP wanted to better understand the impact the pandemic is having on low-fee private schools. So we commissioned 2 researches, which was conducted by Associate for Change. So it was conducted on schools within the Rising Schools program. The first research, which was done between November and December 2020, before mainstream schools were asked to reopen, even though schools that had the junior secondary levels had been instructed to reopen for the JHS2 students, and JHS2 in Ghana means grade 8. Some of the findings that the research brought out was the fact that there were 65% of schools reporting of being at risk of closing down. 15% of these schools were either closed or were about closing down. Only 20% of the school leaders felt confident that they will be able to reopen and stayed reopened. As for the other effect on COVID, the other effect of COVID on the schools, I believe there are a lot of various researches that covers them, including this one, as you will find from the link shared in the chat. The second research, which was conducted after all schools had fully been reopened, just to also get a sense of how things are going after schools reopen, also brought out the findings that 50% of the schools were recording low enrollment numbers during the early days of reopening. And this was attributed to factors like movement of students, some to other schools, and then some because of movement to relocation of where they were staying. There are other factors like parents also struggling to pay fees, of course, from the economic hardship that was brought by the COVID pandemic. However, we found out that 91% of the schools have started recording between 50 to 80% of their previous enrollment few months after reopening. Of course, there were still lingering challenges like teacher attrition, loss of knowledge, non-payment of fees, etc. But we were quite impressed with how resilient the schools in the program were, which proves the impact we are having on these schools, as well as how dedicated the school proprietors are to the work that they are doing for children in their schools. Again, the sharp rise in their enrollment figures few months after school reopening also speaks to the continuous demand for low-fee private schools in the country. And therefore, there is a need to keep supporting these schools. I'll pass it on to Corina now, who will share with you more around the impact of COVID, as well as the responses that IDP gave during that situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. So when COVID-19 hit and resulted in schools closing, and then resulted in the school closures continuing for unknown amounts of time, the amount of fear that we all felt continued to increase as well around whether or not the low-fee private schools who were losing all source of income would actually survive through the pandemic. When we got back the initial data from the Associates for Change survey that would happen during closures, we were very, very nervous. And we decided we needed to quickly conduct a vulnerability and then a follow-on needs assessment in order to get some emergency relief to schools that might not be able to reopen. We were able to do this incredibly quickly, and that was because of a unique presence and long-term commitment that has been seen by both IDP Foundation and our partner, Sinapiaba, through the Rising Schools program over time. As a reminder, the schools within the Rising Schools program are independently owned. They are schools that only are known to us because they participated in training or accessed a loan, but they are on their own and have little to no safety nets. However, they also have a special relationship between the Sinapiaba loan officer and the proprietors. Over time, they've gone to a very different relationship than an unhealthy debtor-creditor relationship, and actually see each other as a true partnership and someone who supports through times of need. The loan officers within Sinapiaba were therefore able to provide us with a really intimate understanding of which schools were going to be most vulnerable and what was driving that vulnerability. They were also able to work with proprietors on the ground and pull together in very short order needs assessments and proposals for emergency grants. The situation in Ghana was the government announced in mid-December that there was a plan to have schools reopen in mid-January, end of January. That was about a month notice to all of the schools, and that included a month that was comprised of the Christmas period. So in general, that would feel like an impossible time to start an assessment, design a grants relief program, have people develop proposals, submit proposals, go through reviews, and administer grants. But we managed to get grants into the pockets of proprietor that were most in need within a month from when that announcement was made over the Christmas period. Again, that was just due to an amazing relationship that has been longstanding between the proprietors, Sinapiaba, and IDP Foundation all along that value chain that we've built. When we started the vulnerability assessment, at that point, we estimated that there were about 40,000 children who were at risk of not having a school to go back to at the point of reopening, but we were happy to be able to support all of those schools in reopening. We'll now move on from the research that we've just provided a little bit of surface information about, but you have links and can go delve more into it as you like. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the insights that we've gained from funding a program that's been supporting and training low-fee private schools in Ghana during this time. And to kick us off with that section, I'm going to pass back to Ralph, who is our resident expert on proprietor training.
Thanks, Corina. So through this webinar, through this presentation, it has been mentioned quite a few times. The IDP Rising School Programs offers proprietor training to school owners, as well as we also grant them access to low interest loans. On this slide, I will be giving a snapshot of what our proprietor training looks like. And on the next slide, I will also share a bit about the loan products that we have. In terms of the proprietor training approach, usually it's a mobilization of between 15 to 30 low-fee private school proprietors who we bring them together to a central location, usually within the community that their schools are in, so that we avoid long distance traveling. Trainings happen twice in a week, and it covers a little over a month. Our training is very participatory and filled with a lot of activities. We do role plays. There are group discussion and presentation. They even get homeworks and submitted the following training day. Sometimes alumni proprietors are invited to come in and share their success stories. Our training is such that it gets proprietors off the tip of their seat on day one to fully seated comfortably in their seat as the training goes on. And sometimes it's even difficult to get them off their seat once they get a taste of the trainings. Each cohort gets trained once, but loan officers that work with the schools in the community provide continuous one-on-one coaching and hand-holding as proprietors implement what they've been taught. In terms of the content, our proprietor training manual has 9 modules covering various topics on both financial and school management trainings. The manual, since its creation in 2009, has gone through a series of revision to keep it relevant to the ever-changing needs of low-fee private schools, including lessons that were learned from COVID-19. The content does not only seek to build on the capacity of these proprietors, but also to change their traditionally outdated style of leadership to an era of accountability, transparency, and discipline. Topics that are covered in the training are broken down for easy understanding. Each model actually builds on the other to facilitate smooth transition from one topic to the other. The trainings, the models, and the topics cover from understanding the dynamics of cost and income to record keeping, from tracking daily fee payments or daily fee collection to cash flow planning. It's also cover from creating a school vision to creating school implementation plan or school improvement plan, from HR management to child safeguarding, and many more. Thus, we feel our training is a one-stop shop for school proprietors. Our goal with this training is to see schools become sustainable, resilient, and growing, even if they choose not to take a loan. We also can boast of over 800 low-fee private schools that have gone through our training program. We are proud of the peer-to-peer learning atmosphere and collaborative relationships that are created among school owners through our trainings. We are proud when a topic like separating your school and personal finances got a school owner from one of our schools to buy a 15-seater van as school bus within 3 months of joining the program. We are proud when we receive feedbacks like, our training is not only helping my school, it is making me disciplined as a person, and I will transfer this into the upbringing of my children. We are aware that there are organizations out there who are planning to serve low-fee private schools in the northern regions through the USAID RFA. And the IDP Rising School team is ever willing to share more of our experiences in the sector if it is of interest. Let me now touch on a few of the numbers that we've recorded in terms of our loan package. Proprietors, either during training or after training, can apply for a loan from the program. We offer very low interest loans for all types of school improvement needs. This is because of our unique partnership that we have with SNAP Yaba. As of the end of May this year, 711 loans totaling 17.6 million cedis, and that's about $2.2 million per current exchange rate, have gone to 825 schools. It is worth noting that about 74% of these loans were for infrastructure needs, and 14% went to either vehicle acquisition or vehicle maintenance. As shown on your screen, the portfolio currently is having a repayment rate of 98%. We didn't think we would achieve this mean when we were starting the program. We are currently also recording 18 months of loan cycle. Many of the proprietors have come back to take follow-on loans, as you can see on the charts on the screen. Some are even on their 10th cycle. This has demonstrated the journey to financial literacy and the ability to use what they have learned in the proprietor training. This is also a showcase of a capacity for extension and continued improvement, which is a key indicator for the sustainability we are looking for. In spite of our achievement, we still know there is a lot more work to be done. And I will let Corina come in to cover more in the next slide. Thank you.
Yes, as you just heard Ralph highlight, we've had a huge amount of success in creating financial sustainably program that is helping to improve infrastructure, hygiene, safety, and that all contributes to the quality of the schools. And we believe that those are precursors to improving learning outcomes. However, we have not seen the level of learning outcomes that we would like to see. Before the pandemic, enrollment in basic education was increasing significantly. However, the quality of learning remained low across the entire education landscape. As you can see on this chart, it's comparing test results between both public and private and urban and rural schools, in this case in the central regions. While you'll see some marginal gains in the private schools, I will say this particular research is skewed by the inclusion of a couple elite schools. And even with that, none of this is sufficient. They're all too low. The need to improve learning outcomes, especially for low-income communities, is a shared challenge across the entire education system. This has been further exacerbated by COVID-19, which led to significant learning loss across all students in the education system. And during COVID closures, low-fee private school teachers remained unpaid, which meant that they needed to go find other sources of income and were not available to support any sort of distance learning or keep track of what was happening to their students during those closures. In Ghana, the implementation of learning interventions in schools has taken into account these marginally higher test results as evidence that non-state schools are better resourced and don't need support, and it results in them being excluded from government interventions. This assumption is based more on the few elite schools, and it doesn't take into consideration that the majority of the non-state schools are low-fee private schools. This is one of the reasons that IDP Foundation funded the creation of the Techniques for Effective Teaching curriculum in partnership with Sesame. We're now going to share a short video clip to explain a little bit about that curriculum.
Apologies. We'll just get back to that now.
True that good teachers and child-friendly classrooms promote critical and creative thinking and a lifelong love of learning. But in many cultures, rote learning is the norm. How can teachers seize its use and become inspired to adopt a child-centered approach that encourages hands-on experiences, a spirit of curiosity and playful learning? Since 2012, a unique and inspirational partnership forged and funded by the IDP Foundation with Sesame Workshop has been exposing teachers in Ghana to new and innovative ways to think about teaching and learning. The Techniques for Effective Teaching program consists of a set of several educational modules to address teaching practices through videos, teacher guides, and learning materials for young children. The stars of the videos, Kami, Zobi, and their teacher, Miss Efia, drive home the messages and goals of the program. A key focus is to advocate for a child's healthy socio-emotional development by encouraging learning through creative and critical thinking. The modules include ideas for making classrooms inclusive, how to teach with limited resources, how to make classroom time fun, and then, of great importance, how to build professional pride amongst the teachers.
I try very hard to make sure that my students enjoy school. And do you know what else? I enjoy it too. In fact, I love being a teacher. I'm very proud of the work I do.
In this video module, Developing a Child-Friendly Classroom, teachers happily welcome all of their students. Classrooms must be safe, comfortable, and fun. Teachers are taught to achieve this through how they set up their classrooms and how they interact with students. Teachers are also encouraged to discuss their lesson plans with one another, to share successes and challenges, and to inspire new ideas. In a third-party evaluation, Ghana's National Center for Research into Basic Education concludes that participating teachers found the Sesame Workshop IDP Foundation program to be highly useful, highly relevant, and very easy to implement.
First, you see the teacher standing in front of the blackboard talking, but after the training, the teachers now involve the children. Even in mathematics, the children will be counting.
Teachers and students across Ghana are proof of the success of the Techniques for Effective Teaching program. Teachers are feeling confidence and pride in their capacity to adopt these techniques and to deeply impact the lives of their students.
Thank you very much, and I hope you all really enjoyed this video. I would like to invite you all to look for these videos on YouTube, and if you are interested in also having conversation of how to use this in your field of work, we are open to have a conversation with you. I'd like to spend some time and talk about this video, and beyond that, actually the program itself, which is the Techniques for Effective Teaching. I would say that developing Techniques for Effective Teaching commences the foundation's journey in improving learning outcomes for the learners in the schools that we serve. IDPF invested in the Techniques for Effective Teaching, which is basically a teacher training curriculum that was designed in partnership with Sesame Workshop, specifically for the low-fee private school sector in Ghana. So what is the program? What's this program all about? It's a 14 video training module featuring the popular Sesame Workshop Muppets, and it's basically designed to support teachers with the necessary skills that will help them move away from rote learning towards child-centered, interactive, exploratory learning through play. To accompany these videos, Sesame has developed master training guides, as well as trainee workbooks and quizzes that complement the videos. And all this, we are happy to talk to the audience and partners who are interested in using them. So please reach out if you are interested in having a conversation about this. But the major thing I want to share with you here is that this is a fantastic example of how low-fee private schools have the potential to serve as innovation hubs that could incubate ideas that can be applied to all schools and benefit all pupils across the education landscape. Since its launch in 2012, the curriculum has been so successful. In 2020, the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission adopted it, and in the following year, this was rolled out to the 46 colleges of education in Ghana. And it's been used to teach pre-service public school teachers over the 46 colleges. It has its own certificate, which upon completion of the program, you are issued with. This is very interesting. And I would like to highlight that effective partnerships are very essential, especially between the public sector and private actors. On the issue of partnership, I want to delve a little bit much more on how relevant this is in my next slide. And to say that IDP takes partnerships very seriously. We put partnership at the center of our work, and for Ghana, government partnership has been very essential for us. It really explains why we have a very good partnership with the Ministry of Education as well as the Ghana Education Service. We believe that partnerships with such entities would help release resources to schools that need them the most. It is also a space whereby we can share evidence and data and also share best practices. We also think that through such partnerships, non-state actors like IDP can serve as innovation hubs where value can be created and spread to benefit all children across the sector. I would like to zone in and share a little bit of some great happenings that took place during the COVID pandemic. And it really goes back to reinforce the need for us to invest in effective partnerships. It is very important that during the pandemic, if it wasn't the fact that there was existing partnership between low-fee private schools and government institutions, the essential services and support that low-fee private school needed during that time wouldn't have reached them. It is very important for us to leverage and ensure that there is effective coordination with low-fee private school sector and government to ensure that they are included in all responses that are coming towards the education space. I also want to highlight the need for us to collaborate with to bring collaboration with and partnership with private school associations. They are very essential in bridging the gap and serving as a bridge between government and the low-fee private school sector. Specifically, if we look at the period of the pandemic, in the height of it, it was the private school associations that supported low-fee private schools to get registered and to be able to access government support. We saw private schools associations playing a vital role in registering low-fee private schools so that they could benefit from financial assistance from government. That was the CAP support, the COVID-19 alleviation program that was rolled out by government. Through the same support process, these schools were able to receive PPEs, were able to also get their schools fumigated when schools reopen. So it's very essential that these private schools associations are supported to play the role that they actually need to be playing. Unfortunately, during that period, we also had reports of some private school associations collecting some monies from low-fee private schools with the promise of getting them registered to access government support, only to find out that they were never registered when the disbursements were being made and they needed this particular support. IDP Foundation has been working with the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, which is the oldest private school association with rooted membership within the whole regions of Ghana. Our vision, working with the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, is to support them, to build their capacity to really represent the collective voice of low-fee private schools and ensure that government's response in the education sector doesn't leave out low-fee private schools. Also, I would like to stress that the Ghana Enterprise Agency, which served as the institution that supported private schools during the pandemic, have realized the need for it to put a targeted program in support of low-fee private schools, because this falls right in their mandate in terms of training and in terms of support, financial support. So I can promise that in the coming years, we should see a program within the Ghana Enterprise Agency that is directly supporting private schools and inclusive of low-fee private schools. IDP has also established a strong relationship with the National Schools Inspectorate Authority, which we believe this authority's role in supporting private schools and low-fee private schools is very essential. It's our belief that its mandate, which is basically to ensure that quality standards exist in both public and private pre-tertiary institutions, it needs to recognize the relevance of understanding the variability that exists within the private school sector, so that its regulatory function is able to be very responsive and contextualized to address the needs of low-fee private schools. At this point, I need to say that government partnership, whether it's with private school associations, whether it's with funders or other non-state actors, need to also prioritize investments in reliable data. If we are able to do this, we will be able to bring a lot of visibility to the private school sector, which should be inclusive of low-fee private schools, and ensure that they are included in all government policy work and decision-making. I am very happy to see that the USAID RFP has this as a core results area. And I'm very optimistic that in the coming years, as the programs take off, we should see so much change in this area. At this point, I'll pass on the space to Corina, who will share with us some closing and concluding thoughts. Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who's stuck with us. I know that we're a little bit over time now, and so I will just take a last couple minutes to wrap up our final thoughts. I think, as has been clear throughout the presentation today, COVID-19 especially was a stark reminder that we need to put ideology aside and implement policies to address barriers preventing schools, both state and non-state, from providing a quality education to all children. Given the impact of the pandemic and the limited time remaining for us to achieve SDG 4, it's time for an all-hands-on-deck approach and to create an inclusive education system where everyone, proprietors, teachers, pupils, receive the support they need to thrive. In the latest policy brief that we shared today, we argue that there needs to be a mindset shift around the inclusion of low-fee private schools and government interventions. The government must work to prevent a ripple effect that negates the gains made over the past decade by ensuring that support is targeted to where it's most needed and is able to be accessed by both state and non-state schools. With this in mind, the policy brief lays out key areas where we believe this targeted support would make the most impact. First, safe school infrastructures and access to teaching and learning materials. The government should ensure that all schools are safe and have access to key learning materials. IDP research demonstrated that textbook sharing remains an issue across the education system. Additionally, we found that while infrastructure tends to be slightly better in public schools, significant challenges remain for both. We also want to see improved teacher training and ensuring teacher motivation. According to our research, teacher motivation is low. Only 42% of teachers in low-fee private schools report being motivated, and only 18% in public schools report being motivated. That was pre-COVID. During COVID, many of the private school teachers either left the industry to seek alternative employment or reported feeling less motivated and secure in their jobs. According to our survey results during COVID, teacher motivation was listed as one of the key challenges proprietors were facing. We'd like to see that any support extended to teachers, whether that be in-service training or pay during forced closures, be extended to all teachers and not exclude those who are already working at much lower salaries in low-fee private schools. Finally, we're very excited about the USAID opportunity and really support their focus on the northern regions. We look forward to collaborating with all implementing partners to ensure it's a success. We would, as we've said many times, feel free to reach out to us directly if you would like to leverage any of the resources or research that we've funded over the past decade. We really do believe that we're all in this together. Thank you.